Yo, that's probably good. What's up, Squeezel? Checking a few things here. We're doing some new stuff with C-Stream functionality with Streamlabs. So, kind of figuring that out. Uh, Twitch is working fine, so that's cool. And supposedly, we're also streaming to YouTube and Facebook. Oh, getting a raid from Kenny. What's up, dude? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Currently checking a few things. Doing some multi-stream stuff. As far as I can tell, it's working. YouTube is being a little weird. No, like, dashboard for YouTube that I can find easily. Don't know how I'm gonna monitor YouTube channel. Okay, I am live on YouTube. Cool, cool, cool. So I just have to go to my channel and like pull up the stream and mute it or something, like to be able to see the YouTube chat. So what I have to do with this? Let's see. Well, I'll just do that. Low tech. Have that open. All right, cool. Well, so we've been working on this votann project pretty hardcore since coming back from Champs Cup, and we have like basically like 2 units models, and then it's done. And so we were painting these Hearthguard. Yeah, I think we might have to do restream just for the mono page chat thing. I'll figure that out next time. As long as it's working this time. Um, yeah. So last time we were working on these Hearthguard, doing some eBay rescue stuff, and we're to a point with them now where they're all the oranges are done. I decided I wanted to do the white face plates just to have a little orange and white. It's the army. And before we do anything else like paint chipping and stuff like that, I want to put our decals. And that kind of works out because my painting hand has been getting a little fatigue. So I kind of want to take a little bit of for a day or two just to let that. So we're gonna do some decal stuff. I like my decals. Talk about some cool decal tech. Let me pull out my decal sheets so I can kind of show you. So I've got all my decals in here pre-cut for all the dudes, but you know, GW's got decal sheets. They're pretty tight. Votann sheet, right? I personally like some different brands of stuff. Really cool decals from different companies. If you just really want Warhammer stuff, but you don't want to have to buy a new Warhammer kit to get a sheet of decals, there's the Mighty Brush. Out of the UK, they make great decal sheets. These are super high quality. I'd hazard to say they're better than GW's stuff. And they make just about anything you can think of. I haven't looked too deep into their roster, but if it's Space Marines, they got it, right? And so this is just a great one because it's lots of little emblems and markings and stuff that kind of work for everything. So I've got a handful of these. Like I thought these little like rank arrows would look cool on their helmets. And then I like to get a lot of stuff from Bandai and third-party companies that make stuff for Gundam model kits. You can see these are all very tiny, which makes them great for 40k stuff. Works within our scale pretty good. All sorts of fun stuff. Cool symbols, different letter and number fonts, things like caution decals and things like that. Like stuff like this. Tons and tons of little technical decals. Great for things. Um, Stuff that Games Workshop would make a killing on. They don't. Just a sheet of hazard stripes, bunch of different shapes and sizes. Like this would be pure gold for a lot of Warhammer modelers. I also really like the Gundam stuff because you get cool like nose art and unit emblems that are great for vehicles and things. Some of the third-party stuff, lots of just sheets of different fonts of numbers, different things, and they're way cheaper. I don't think GW sells decal sheets separately anymore. When they used to, they were quite expensive. Like they were way over market value. I mean, if the only way to get a decal sheet is you have to order it from somebody on eBay, who might be scalping you, or you have to buy a new box of models. Getting a $5 decal sheet from it's pretty good. Soccer, what's up? Oh, we got a couple of starting heresy. Dude, I have so much chaos already. Salt merchant. I have a massive chaos collection. I have like 3 chaos armies. I guess 4 if you count chaos knights. Yeah, see exactly. Like Horus Heresy decal sheets, $35. Like $5 for those. Okay, so I went in and I kind of pre-planned a lot of stuff. I prefer to do stuff like this where I just cut everything out. Super bright. Just cut everything out beforehand rather than trying to do it one at a time as I'm working, right? Because one thing that I talked a lot about coming back streaming is what I want to focus on with my stuff, other than the odd like single character model or like cool conversion piece or something, right? Is I value looks cool, time efficient. Those are my 2 things. Right? So if you're the average Warhammer hobbyist and you want to be able to play this game and you want to be able to have cool looking models, but you don't want to take on a second day job of time, do all this stuff, right? We're gonna focus on time efficiency and stuff just looking cool. I'm trying to find my self-closing tweezers. Oh, what I did with them. Got these. Where to have cool ones. Huh. Here. Yeah, they are. Found them. Right. So I mean, like, I was doing this earlier today, and I put them in a little container. But normally, what I would do is I have my little piece of cardboard here for cutting. I would just line all this stuff up. So, because I took a break between this morning and now, all this stuff is kind of have to get laid out. But if I were doing this fresh, I would be cutting these out and staging them. Oop. Just so they're easy to grab as I'm doing my assembly line painting. Just Icarus, thanks for that follow. So that way I'll be like kind of working one model at a time. I don't have to hunt for this stuff. So this one goes this shoulder pad, and this one goes that shoulder pad. The little guy. It seems like this is kind of tedious. In some aspects of doing decals, no matter what you do, is going to seem that way. But setting yourself up like this is going to save you time in the long run. Player Jake coming over the sub. Thanks, dude. And a healthy walk. Basically, so that as I'm working through these models, I can just know a little decals are. I don't have to go hunting for it. It's also better because like I'm spending time kind of like front loading effort into like the planning stage. Because one thing I've noticed for myself is if I'm just staring at a decal sheet and then kind of like looking back and forth between the sheet and the model, like, where could this go? What should I put here? That type of stuff. Like you can sometimes get decision paralysis. And you're like, oh shit, like a half hour's gone by and I literally haven't done anything. So I like to just kind of get my plan and I'm like, all right, what do I want to go here? What do I want there? And then I just kind of figure that out, cut all those decals out. So that way, I'm just like, I don't have to think about it through the process. Slap them on one guy, go down the line. There's inevitably going to be some of these decals that we're going to have to kind of mess with. Get them to sit properly or brush out wrinkles or air bubbles. So a lot of times what will end up happening is I'll do all the decals on one model and then move on to the second one. And then I'll have to go back to the previous one. Gonna do a little brushing, little futzing, and then good to go. It's sort of one forward, one back. Just kind of depends. Like sometimes decals will just like you just hit it the first try. It feels really good. Like, oh yeah. Decal god. Then the next model, it's just like the same decal on the same spot is just not wanting to cooperate. Okay. So now we've got all these. I can just move this over here and I don't have to go hunting. I think there's a term for this. I forget what it's called, but I've heard somebody talk about it before. You like line up all your components and stuff beforehand. Okay, so we got some water. The two things we're gonna need. It's right here. So this is This is like basically our biggest cheat code. Microsol, microset. One is a solution that helps decals like bond to the model, and then microsol is a softener. So it's going to do two things. It's going to make your decal more flimsy and make it want to stretch and conform to whatever surface you're putting it on. And as you brush it out and have it set, that transparent layer of plastic that the image is actually on is going to disappear a little bit. Is that what the term is? Take your word for it. And you're going to want to brush kind of specifically for this. This stuff, the microsol can be kind of harsh on your brushes. And so like you can clean them out with water and it'll be fine. Like there's not technically anything wrong with this brush. It's just I'd have to condition it and soap it and that kind of thing just to get it to hold a point again. So I usually like when a brush kind of like ends its painting lifespan, I'll move it over to doing technical work like this. So like it's fine for. So here. Okay. Start off with our shoulder pad. Got this little white emblem. This is why I want my self-closing tweezers. Because I can snag just a little, tiny little corner decal paper. I'm just going to dip it right into the microsol solution. A little bit of water. Kind of brush that over the top and onto the paper. So we're going to start the process of softening this little guy up. You can see that white edge there. And help it come off of the paper. See, it's already one around. So when that decal moves around on the paper pretty freely, I'm just going to get a little small amount of set. Just gently push that on there. Snag that with our brush. Sit on there. Then look here. I like to use the other end of my brush to sort of grab, very, very gently move these around. Bigger decals, you got to be really careful because you might actually grab a hold of it and pull it. But for this, it's fine. Set here. Should be a fairly flat surface, but having our softener is definitely going to help. Problem is, with a lot of 40K stuff, you're going to have multiple axes of curvature on a surface. And so what I mean by that, right, is so you got to think of like, so decals are like a flat plane, right? Like this, technically it's a flat plane, right? And so if you try to curve it in one direction, right? So over that one axis curvature, it'll just fold right over and lay flat. But when you try to do it on two at the same time, right? So if it's curving this way towards me, then I also try to put a curve in the other axis, then that's where you get like crinkles and stuff. Like you just want to do that. So that's why, one, we want to create kind of a liquid vacuum with the micro set by brushing a little bit of that on first. So there's liquid trapped underneath the decal, and you brush that out and it creates a vacuum. It's going to want to suck that decal down onto the model. And then as it's doing that, it's being softened by the microsol solution, which is going to make it stretch. Sometimes you got to keep kind of brushing at it just a little bit over time. I'm just going to let that do its thing. It looks like it's almost there. Get like a tiny amount more micro set. So very important thing to note before we get too far into this is microsol is a solvent. That's what sol stands for. And so I highly, highly recommend that before doing any of this, you varnish your models with a protective layer. It's kind of old hat at this point that pretty much everybody says that like, oh, you need to like gloss or satin varnish your models beforehand because it creates a better surface for doing decals. I don't know that it necessarily has to be gloss varnish or satin varnish, but anything that creates that protective layer over your paint that is going to keep this solvent from reacting to that thin water-based paint, it's going to be really helpful. And also letting your paint go through its full chemical curing process before doing this is also going to help. You don't want to like rub that paint off or bubble it up or anything. And so since these models, I actually painted the orange on these a couple of days ago. They've had more than enough time to go through that process. So this decal is a little big for this shoulder pad, but I think we can make it work. Lose any sleep if a couple of those little rivet holes are covered up by our clear paper. That do its job. Hot. You know, and we're trying to maintain efficiency. So while that is doing its thing, I'm gonna find something else that I can lay down, like this little symbol that I'm using for the weapon arms. Might be too big to go on his regular gauntlet or his hammer. So I think I'm just gonna leave this off, this guy. More for the power fists. But we've got these little guys here. For those little front plates. They're right here. So like what there's gonna be a number on one on the left side. Then this little cool rune symbol right here. Gonna have to little push bristles where you want it to. Looks good. Little brush down here. That one's laying down pretty good. Brush down right here. This one's gonna need some more help. See how it's wanting to flip up on one side. Some more micro saw. Push that down again. This thing. Squad number. Clearly, you said follow. set for right there. Number pretty close on the first try. Little nudge. There we go. Good. Brush there. Brush down right here. Even though it looks like these plates are flat, there is actually a little bit of a domed surface to them, which is making this decal not want to cooperate. Might be one of these things where I'm just gonna have to let microsol just kind of sit on it. Sometimes you're gonna run into that same problem where like the some decals just work great and they soften really quickly and they just easy peasy. Other decals are going to maybe be a little bit thicker, like the plastic is going to be a little bit thicker, more rigid, and it's just going to take longer for that microsol to work its way into there and like soften it up. So everything is where I want it on this guy. We've got our 4 little decals looking great. So I'm just going to set him down, move on to the next guy. And I've got that microsol on that one decal, just kind of letting it do its thing. And we'll go back and check it after we go through this guy. I'll also say this, like, I know that making your own decals is a popular thing amongst Warhammer people. I don't do it mainly because the type of printer that you need for it is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more expensive. Not really something that I want to get into, and you have to buy the paper. And it's good for larger scale things. Like if you're working with like larger scale models or like model cars, RC cars, RC planes, stuff like that, it's pretty good. But for stuff really, really small, like what we want for our Warhammer minis, it starts to not be so great. And the problem that I've seen with a lot of brands of at your like make it yourself decals is that if you try to use a softening solution or a decal setting solution like these, it'll just like dissolve the inkjet paint off of the decal paper. So they only really work for stuff that's like big, flat, broad surfaces where you only really need the water to activate the decal setting glue, all that kind of stuff. So I prefer to just use third-party decals like this for stuff. And if it's something that like I just absolutely can't find a solution for, then like freehand is on the table. Not quite sure the technology that makes it to where some of these decals was super loud. Turn that dirt stuff down. Facebook. Not quite sure the tech where like the stuff from Bandai and Mighty Brush is fine, but at do-it-yourself decals are just like they'll just dissolve. Let's see. Let's see. Volume control. It's like it's good for it. If there is people watching on Facebook, apologize because like we're not able to have chat monitored with Facebook with this setup just yet. We're getting there though. Get there next time. If you want to chat, if you want me to see it, come over to the YouTube live stream or the Twitch live stream. Down. All the rest of these dudes are gonna have power, so we can use our little red caution symbol. Remember, right? These are a little hardier. Little the other stickers might take a little bit longer to get it to move around on the paper. All right, while we wait for that, let's look at our other guy. It's like we're still having a little bit of a crease. It's all on there. Keep gently brushing it down. This thing. Okay. I have to do this a lot with Space Marine shoulder pads because even with our solutions, some of the shoulder pad emblems just take a really long time to soften all the way to where they will stretch over that domed surface. That's why I'm just used to the back and forth messing with these. Red arrow danger sign looks real mean with the black armor. It's another. Good. Same thing. Just kind of go forward, keep checking back. I wouldn't say that I got that surgeon touch. Big practice part of it. It's just one of those things, right? So like I was doing scale models with my dad when I was a kid. So when I actually got into Warhammer models as a teenager, going into young adulthood. I just came into that world already having experience using an airbrush and like already knowing that's like, okay, if I'm going to use decals, I need to use like decal softener and setting solution and all that. Like, I've been using it for. That was the wild thing is like, I joined into the Warhammer world community of that, and people are trying to like get their decals to work with just water, and they're always like frustrated, like, why aren't these decals working on my Space Marines? Dude, this is dumb. I'm like, well, here's a little trick that GW won't tell you is that like all the studio people, that's the only way they ever get their decals to work is they use softening solution. It's literally impossible to get a GW decal to set onto a dome Space Marine surface without softening it. Like, it just doesn't work. It's just one of those weird things. Like, Games Workshop, why wouldn't you just tell people that, like, and just sell your own overpriced proprietary brand of decal solution, dude? And so, like, for a really long time, the whole decal solution thing was sort of this like secret tech that not everybody knew about. And there was this era in like the 2000s, like the early 2000s, where you would just have like all these Space Marine armies with like no decals, like nothing on their shoulder pads. Not because people were like, "Oh, I want to run my Space Marines as generic," but it was like they just didn't understand how to use decals. They were like, "Well, I'd like to be able to put my Space Wolves logo on stuff, but it should just don't work, dude." I showed it before, but we're using the micro scale micro sol for the softening solution and micro set as the setting solution. You don't need the setting solution. It's just kind of a handy thing. It helps the decals like suck down onto the model and get a better adherence. But I legitimately do not use decals without busting open the microsol. Because the other thing that microsol does is if you get real close and you look at your decals, you'll notice that there's like a tiny little border of that sheer plastic around the edge. Um, and it's the plastic that the ink is on, right? And a lot of times, if you don't use setting solution, even if you varnish over your models, you can see that little transparent layer. So it's still got kind of a shiny surface to it even after varnishing. And so by using the softening solution and brushing that out, you get rid of that sheer gloss finish that it has, and it helps it disappear. That's why I use it even on stuff where I like these little numbers where I'm like, oh, this is easy peasy. It's just gonna go onto a flat surface. I'm not sure if the camera is picking that up much at all, but here's that little plastic border. Symbol. And this guy's got a helmet, so we'll do the little helmet marker. Oop. So we know that this decal is a little chunkier. It's going to take a while to lift up. Almost there. There's like the tiniest of little creases left. So let's go back to our first guy. And we're just going to do the same thing. Just gently brush a little bit more our microsol on there. Just want to make sure that I'm not like pressing into the model. Like I don't want to press down to where my bristles are doing that, because that's almost the same as doing this where it can move it around. I just want to very, very gently brush that out. this guy. Kind of the same spot, like right here. It's having that tiny little crease. Almost there. Brush it out again. Get that to stretch just a little bit. This one's looking good. Brush for good measure. All right, so here we go. See if I can zoom in on. So you'll see on that number 1 how that little tiny border of plastic is catching the light. So that is the reason why we want to use our solution even on stuff that's flat, is it helps get rid of that plastic sheen. And just a little bit of microsol sitting on there, brushing it on a little bit over time. Arrow. If I remember right, I think these take a while to lift up as well. Make sure, so when I'm touching the model, that when I plant my finger to help anchor my hand, I'm not touching our decals, because even if something looks like it's set, really easy to just press your finger onto it and it'll lift it right off of the model. Yeah, it looks about okay. Let's check our guys here. Almost, man. It's so pushing them until it sits down. I think it's partially due to the fact that these shoulder pads are slightly domed, which is always going to give you, and also they're a little big. This one specifically is a little big for what we're asking it to do. We can make it work. I think that symbol is really cool as like a little like shoulder pad unit symbol, and I really want it on there, so I'm gonna make it work. Notice that I'm only soaking these for just a little bit. Smaller decals, it's less of an issue, but with larger decals, if you let them sit too long before putting them on the model, when you try to transfer them, they'll like curl up because they become so soft they'll fold under their own weight. And so that's why the instant that I can move that thing around on the decal paper freely, I'm gonna put it onto the model. And then I'm gonna let it do the rest of its softening after it's already on there. Learned that one the hard way. Sometimes it'll still get away from me. Working on a tank or something. I've got this really cool decal that I want to put on there, and I'll forget, or like something will catch my attention, and I'll try to lift it off the paper, and it'll just roll over onto itself and ruin it. This one, so maybe this one we do need to let soak. Let's try that. I have extras of these, so let's just let that kind of do its thing for a minute. And these guys. So before putting that one on, let's just let that soak for a little bit and see what that does. Maybe that specific decal needs to get a better softening going on before I put it on the model. That might be the trick. If I mess that one up, I can just cut out another one. I don't think it's just straight vinegar. I do think it's like a mixture of things. For the people watching on YouTube, I'm not as practiced as checking chat as I am with Twitch, since this is our first kind of like multi-stream. Be a little patient. Weren't waiting too long for me to see that. Check here. I think we did it. I think our first guy is looking good. One more little brush. This guy's still got like a tiny little crease. This guy. Let's go back to our go. This helped us at all. looks like it's wanting to cooperate a little bit better. They're soaking it for longer. Might be the trick. Anytime I have downtime waiting for stuff, I'm just gonna grab so check on our other models. And I'm just gonna let this one soak for a while. You can see, like, once we've got these our sort of like our order down, assembly line going, goes pretty fast. Then we're waiting for that, so I'm going to go back and look at our boys. Brush. template knit soap for layers, definitely helping these want to sit better. It's pretty easy. Got a squad done already. These might be a little big too, so I'm just gonna start off following that method of just taking our soak. We land there. Little Duppy. The impending death. Chugging through these. It's going. There's not really any way to make decals go faster than we already are. There's always just going to be an aspect of this that this is just going to take some time. But it's one of those things where it's a lot less than having to paint stuff, because we've already got like our plans scoped out, we've got our decals cut. I'm gonna just put your brain in autopilot, follow rules that we set for ourselves. To worry about being too inefficient. That was on our first squad. Really nicely now. Just takes time. You can see that, like, so there's no creases, no bumps, perfectly smooth on it. It's just what it takes. A little bit of time and patience. Ones are looking good. Guy, let's start off. Squad emblem. That's soaking. Dang it. Shit back. There we go. Okay. The more you do of these, you kind of build up the natural muscle memory and placing the decals where you want them to go. It's got to soak for a little bit, so let's back to our others. Brush down. Re-soaking these big emblems was definitely the play. Let them stretch faster. My hands off a little bit. I think I'm getting a lot of metallic paint particles rubbing off my fingers from paint scissors. Hoping I haven't transferred any of that. Still gotta cook dinner right after this, so I don't want metallic fleck particles on my steak. Good. Guy. It's there. I feel on. Amazing thing is I haven't lost any of these. Oh, God dang it. Literally said that, and then I break a decal. Don't count your chickens. God bless. Luckily, I have a billion votann decals boxes. I have to on that with my. That's why I position it a little bit better. Let that one soak. So go back, push down this model. Sure. Push it out on the bed. Did it. Better other models. Brush down. Okay, cool. Mission accomplished. Cool. So our boys are looking dope. Important tip. That's right. So, betting I could probably do this. Seems dry. Seems dry to the touch, right? So you would think like, oh, if I can just touch with my finger, probably just varnish right over those, right? Because whenever you do decals, you gotta seal them in with varnish. Make sure that no liquid can get up underneath them, float them up. Um, However, I've learned many years that the best thing to do is simply get all your decals on, start looking good, and just walk away. Similar to how when you paint a model, paint may feel dry to the touch, but it's actually got to go through a process of curing more. It's got some time left in it before it's fully cured, right? Um, Same thing with these decals, with our setting solution and all that stuff, right? We want to make sure that if there's any type of evaporation that needs to keep happening as these things continue to like dry out and stretch and conform to the model, we want to just let that happen because there's been a number of times I've even done it live on stream years ago where I'll lay down a decal or two and I'm like, oh, this looks sick. It's great. It's right where I want it. And then it's dry and I'll varnish right over it and it like fogs underneath the varnish because there's just evaporation that still needed to happen before sealing it under that layer of varnish paint. So that's how I just plan my painting sessions, right? So it's like the first session was get everything primed, base coated, and paint in our orange. And then I know I'm ready for decals. And so the next session was today, and we got our decals on there, and like that was a solid hour and a half. You know, could have been a lot longer if we weren't prepped and ready and focused on setting ourselves up for success, laying like pre-cutting all of our decals and laying them out and everything. Um, but even though I could just put varnish over these right now, I'm not going to because I want them to just take the time, fully dry out, fully evaporate, and then like tomorrow when I start painting in the afternoon or something, the first thing I'll do is I'll just hit them with a coat of varnish and let that dry, and then I can paint right on top of it. And with some decals, I've noticed, especially GW ones, what you want to do first when you varnish your models, right, is because you want them to be matte so it looks like it's painted onto the model. You want to use a matte varnish. A lot of the GW decals I have noticed over the years, if you just lead off with a matte varnish, it can do that same thing where it can fog the transfer plastic rather than make it like just go over it and make it matte. So what I do is I seal the decals in with a satin varnish, and then when that's dry, I'll put a matte varnish over that, and that's about as perfect as it's gonna get. And then if you're doing stuff like weathering or washes and different things of that nature, that's also going to create color filters on top of those decals and help get rid of that plasticky shine. And like a final varnish when the model is completely finished will also help that as well. But we're talking like you just put on your decals and they're looking sick and you're all proud of yourself. Just let them evaporate overnight. And then when you come back, hit them with a satin varnish first, then hit them with a matte varnish, and that's where you're going to get your best results. Cool, cool, cool. So right about time where we want to stick for right now, solid like hour and a half for stream time. So let's find somebody to raid. If you're watching over on YouTube or you're watching over on Facebook, nothing I can do about that. So the stream is just going to end. But if you want to check out what we're doing here on Twitch and you want to see some other talented painters paint stuff, then just come over to Twitch. Type in the search bar Warhammer, type in the search bar miniatures. I find a lot of really cool people. But for all the people on Twitch, I'm going to set this rate up and then get out of here for the night. We're going to be back on Tuesday, normal time. So we're finally getting back to normal schedule. So Tuesday, Fridays. And then if I feel like I want to add a third day, I might do that. But for like the first couple of weeks here of getting back to schedule, it's going to be Tuesday and Friday. All right. Somebody to read. Line. Who's doing stuff? This wizard. Wait, still alive? Yeah, he's alive. Is it? I don't think I've seen this person before. Let's raid them. I like reading new people. Check them out. Set this raid up. Oh, just clicked on. Ah, dang it. Back to the dashboard. Where did I get? Giving me like all new. Start this raid up. There we go. All right, I'm out of here.